There is a version of you that you haven't met yet. A version so cold, so calculated, and so relentlessly consistent that if you met him today, you wouldn't recognize him. You would fear him. Most people think discipline is a mild lifestyle adjustment. They think it's about waking up early, eating clean, or working hard. They are dead wrong. Real discipline is not a habit. It is an act of violent erasure against your own internal weakness. It is the absolute ability to look at your emotions, your sudden exhaustion, and your pathetic excuses, and bury them alive. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this fundamental truth. He didn't write his text for saints. He wrote it specifically for strategists. He knew that to hold undisputed power in a chaotic, volatile world, you cannot afford to be soft, and you cannot afford to be predictable. You must become an unyielding force of nature. When you become truly disciplined, the masses don't just respect you, they get nervous around you. They sense a permanent psychological shift. They see a sovereign individual who can no longer be manipulated by words, trends, or praise. A man who has completely stopped negotiating with his own mind. And that terrifies them. Because a man who cannot be broken by his own comfort cannot be broken by any external threat. This is not self-help. This is calculated self-destruction. We are going to dismantle the weak, dependent, emotional slave that runs your routine so that the ruler can finally emerge. The practical armor of silence. Machiavelli famously stated that everyone sees what you appear to be, but few ever experience who you truly are. The average weak-minded man broadcasts everything. He tells the world his grand plans. He logs his routine, displays his micro-efforts, and announces his new era on social media before he has completed a single day of legitimate execution. He seeks instant validation for energy he hasn't even exerted yet. This public display is why he fails. He constantly releases the pressure valve before the engine has a chance to build real momentum. You must execute the polar opposite strategy. You must become a ghost. Unshakable discipline requires absolute silence. It demands the dark. When you are constantly talking about your ambitions, you are subconsciously begging for approval. You are asking a mediocre world, is it okay if I become great? Stop asking. The most lethal man in any room is the one who silently listens, meticulously watches, and reveals absolutely nothing. When you enter total silence, you create an uncomfortable psychological vacuum. People become deeply unsettled. They begin to project their own worst fears onto you. They wonder what you are scheming. They notice you no longer feed on their shallow attention. This silence is your armor. It completely protects your intent. Imagine disappearing from your social circles for 6 straight months. No announcements, no loud explanations, just systematic, uninterrupted work. When you re-emerge, you don't return the same. You come back sharper, heavier, and completely detached. They will feel your change in your posture, in your focus, and in the terrifying way you choose not to speak. Explanation is the default language of the victim. The sovereign does not justify his actions, he simply executes. The art of emotional alchemy. There is a massive societal misconception that highly disciplined individuals are cold robots who simply don't feel pain, boredom, or exhaustion. That is a complete lie. The disciplined man feels everything. He feels the overwhelming urge to quit. The single difference is he does not care. Machiavelli argued that an effective leader must never be ruled by his emotions, but instead must weaponize them. You cannot rely on loving the grind. You will absolutely hate it when the reality of execution sets in. You cannot rely on fleeting passion. Passion is a fickle, weak flame that a single gust of bad circumstance blows out instantly. You need something far colder. You need a rigid sense of duty. Discipline is the calculated art of acting in direct, hostile opposition to how you feel in the moment. It is pure emotional alchemy. You take the heavy lead weight of "I don't want to" and force it into the gold of "I execute it anyway." When you stop consulting your emotional state before deciding whether to fulfill your promises, you become inherently dangerous. If your competition knows you only perform when you feel motivated, all they have to do is wait for you to experience a bad day. Then you are defenseless. But if you are the anomaly who works harder when he is miserable, who trains deeper when he is rejected, and who focuses with laser precision when he is furious, you become entirely untouchable. Treat your inner emotions like the external weather. You look out the window and acknowledge the storm, but you do not cancel the deployment because it rains. You adjust your gear and move out. You are the prince of your mind, and your emotions are merely unruly, uneducated subjects. If they riot, you do not compromise. You crush them. Bypass the internal negotiation. Do not think. Thinking is the absolute enemy of rapid execution. The body must blindly obey the command. Weaponized isolation. To maintain unshakable control, a ruler must be comfortable standing completely alone. Machiavelli observed that a wise sovereign should rely exclusively on what is within his direct control, never on what depends on the whims of others. Look closely at your circle. Look at the people you waste your hours with. Are they aggressively forcing your growth, or are they safely rotting in comfort? Most humans are terrified of isolation. They fill every silent pocket of their lives with mindless noise, cheap text messages, and infinite scrolling because they cannot survive a room with their own unfiltered thoughts. Their thoughts tell them the brutal reality of their stagnation. To become terrifyingly disciplined, you must weaponize isolation. You must be entirely willing to walk away from anyone who does not align with the prime mission. It sounds cold, it is ruthless, but it is non-negotiable. When you begin to elevate, your old peers will instinctively try to drag you backward. Not because they hate you, but because your rapid self-mastery shines a blinding light on their lack of effort. You become an uncomfortable mirror to them. When you transform your body, the out-of-shape companion feels judged. When you build an enterprise, the lazy friend feels exposed. They will label you as obsessed, cold, or no fun. Accept their judgment. Shallow fun is the currency of the average. You are not here to belong. You are here for total mastery. Let them draft stories about how you think you're above them. You don't think you are better. You simply have elite standards, and you refuse to lower them just to keep insecure people comfortable. Isolation is the absolute laboratory of greatness. In true solitude, the noise of other people's doubts dies out, allowing your vision to become crystal clear. Lock the door, disconnect the network, face the heavy work, implacable reality. Machiavelli famously analyzed that it is vastly safer for a ruler to be feared than to be loved, because love is bound by a fragile link of perceived obligation, which weak humans break the second it serves their immediate advantage. but fear is sustained by an unyielding dread of consequence, which never fails to keep them in line. How does this translate to your self-mastery? When you lack discipline, you are completely predictable. People know exactly when you will quit. They know what makes you complain. They know that if they place enough pressure or distraction on you, your structure will fold like paper. You are easy to manipulate because all your emotional entry points are wide open. But when you master discipline, you become a permanent glitch in their social matrix. You entirely cease to react. If someone insults you to elicit a response, you don't flare up in anger. You look through them, pause, and calmly return to your work. This lack of reaction is terrifying to manipulative people. They rely heavily on your emotional volatility to keep you under control. When you completely remove the buttons they use to press, they are left utterly powerless. Your absolute consistency becomes a silent weapon. Imagine a man who shows up to his post every single day without fail. He doesn't boast. He doesn't seek pity. He simply executes his directives month after month, year after year. You cannot distract him, you cannot discourage him, and you cannot break his pace. That level of execution is terrifying because it makes your progress inevitable. You must become that exact force, an entity that cannot be negotiated with. Kill the weak part of you that craves outward sympathy. Stop posting about your struggles. Stop looking for validation. When you seek sympathy, you expose your soft underbelly. Hide your scars. Stand straight, freeze your expressions, and move with absolute intent. Even if your private world is burning to the ground, you never let them see you sweat. This new you is scary. Power is always frightening. But when you walk into a room with total self-control, you vibrate at a different frequency. People yield the right of way. The old you is dead. Now go into the dark and build the sovereign version of yourself. Welcome to Mind Nest Facts. Subscribe.